Connor, are you still with us?
Oh, excuse me. My apologies there. I'll restart that. Hello, my name. Sorry about that. Hello, my name is Connor Hibbs, and I'm joined here by Jacob Therrien. So today we're going to be talking about vetting leads and different software solutions that you can use as brokers to help make yourself more efficient as you go about ramping up business. Now, just a little bit about RCN Capital. So we are a national direct private lender, and we have been around since 2010. We are a leader in the industry for fix and flips as well as rental loans. We do have an abundance of capital, so us running out of capital to be able to finance you or your clients' deals is not going to be an issue with us. Now, we also do our underwriting in-house. We do this for several reasons. One, it allows us a bit more flexibility in some of those more situational loan scenarios where maybe we need to get an exception here or there to be able to get the deal to close. But also by having our underwriting done in-house, it gives us the ability to rush certain files, especially if you have a client who's coming close to a contract date. So by having those underwriters in-house, we can reach out to them directly, let them know that we need to rush a specific file, and help to get that done in time to make sure that you and your clients are happy. Now, we have funded over 13,000 transactions since we've been around, with just about 4,900 of them coming last year. We've also done over 3 billion in total origination, with about 1.2 billion coming last year, about 5.4 coming the year prior, and just over 500 the year before, about 260 million the year before that. So really what we're seeing here, with the exception of 2020, the pandemic year, we've been seeing about 100% growth over each year. So we have been growing at a very rapid rate. Now, as for vetting leads, what are some of the questions that you guys should be asking your clients up front? So the first is, do you have a property in mind? You want to make sure that when you're speaking with your client, if they do have a property in mind or not, it's going to depend on the type of loans that you're looking for. So in an example where the borrower doesn't quite have a property in mind, you may need to be looking for a line of credit. Or on the other side, if they do have a property in mind, this is an area where you can begin to vet the property so you can get a better idea of what type of property it is, where it is. You can even look into different things such as the average time on the market for those properties. So this is all going to be an advantage for you, as well as a very important piece as you go ahead and speak to those lenders on that initial contact. The next is you're going to want to make sure that you look into what type of loan your client is looking for. Some borrowers are going to be looking for ground up construction. Some are going to be looking for rehab loans. Others may be looking for long-term rental loans. So these are all going to impact the type of information that you're going to need to collect from your client moving forward. And again, is very important in that initial contact when you're speaking with a lender about trying to get financing. You're also going to want to ask your borrower if they've got any prior experience. Now, each lender is different, but here at RCN, the experience does play a pretty significant role in our rehab program, for example, whereas with our long-term rental, it might not play as large of a role. So knowing if they have any prior experience can not only be important in terms of the LTV and interest rates on a loan, but it can also be important in making sure that that loan gets cleared, or also making sure that that lender is more comfortable with that scenario. And then the last thing that you're going to want to make sure that you ask your client about up front is roughly what their FICO score is. This can be very important, and it also brings up other possible conversations for you to have with your client. For example, if you run into a client that has an 800 FICO score, that's going to be much easier for you. You know that you have a very strong client when it comes to their FICO. This is going to be really advantageous when looking for quotes when it comes to long-term rental loans. However, if you come across a client that, say, has a 640 or maybe even in the 500s, this is going to bring up a different conversation. Immediately, you know that if they're, say, at a 640, they're going to be expecting leverage reductions in terms of long-term loans, or even if they're in the 500s, this may bring up credit repair options or possibly bringing in a different partner. So these are all important things to know up front, and these are all things that the lender will be asking you as the broker up front. Now, you're going to want to do your research as well. So once you know what the subject property is, it's important to check and see where it is. Here at RCN, we do want to make sure that the property is in a suburban or urban area. So off the bat, if you did a little bit of research and you found that the property is in a rural area, this can help to narrow the search of possibilities for where you're going to be able to get financing for that client. You're also going to want to know if the borrower plans on having their family or themselves to live in the property, whether it be a long-term rental, whether they're looking to purchase the property, do some renovations and move in. I've also come across a situation where a borrower was simply looking to purchase another property using a bridge loan while they sell their current residency and then move in after. So these are all really important things, and again, will impact where you need to go to look for financing for that client. You're also going to want to look and see how long are the properties typically on the market in that area. If your borrower is looking to do some rehab on a property and then sell it off afterwards, this can be a very important thing to bring up to them, as you do want to make sure that if it is in an area that has properties on the market for longer, that your borrower can be prepared for that. Or if they are looking for properties to flip quickly, this is something that you can bring up to them as they're looking to select their next property. You're also going to want to know, do the numbers that the borrower is telling you match up with other properties in the subject properties area? So this can be very important, especially when it comes to some of those heavy rehabs or ground up construction projects. Nearly all lenders, if not all lenders, are going to be looking for comparable properties in the area. So it is going to be important to make sure that if your borrower is purchasing a property where the average home value is, say, $350,000, you want to make sure that they're not going in there trying to do a heavy rehab to get an after repair value of, say, $1.5 million. You want to make sure that your property is a match for the area, or your borrower's expectations for the property will be a match for the area, as this will help drastically in turn times, especially if they are trying to sell the property, but also in getting them a more realistic idea of what those market rents would be there. You're also going to want to know if there's any underlying problems with the borrower's plans. An example of this would be a property expansion where the project, or a property expansion project where the property is zoned as wetlands. This is an area where a borrower may just initially see the property on Zillow, or maybe they were looking around online for properties for sale. They didn't quite look into the property as much as they did look at the price tag of the property. So this would be an issue, as typically in areas that are zoned as wetlands, there's not going to be able to be any rehab done on that land. So these are all things that you're going to want to make sure that you're looking into proactively as the broker, as you go ahead vetting these leads and looking for compatible lenders. The next thing is going to be some red flags that you're going to want to look out for. So a couple of different red flags that we see here are as follows. So is the borrower reluctant to answer questions about liquidity? Is the borrower dodging questions about how much cash they have available, if they would have enough to close? This can bring up concerns about something called gap funding. What gap funding is where a borrower is looking to get financing through a lender, but they don't quite have enough capital themselves to be able to close. So they go and take out an additional lien from a separate lender to be able to cover the closing costs. This is something that RCN is not going to be able to move forward with, but also many other lenders would have questions about. You're also going to want to ask your borrower about criminal records. So some things such as a DUI 30 years ago might not have as much weight on it as, say, property fraud or tax fraud or other felonies. So these are all going to be things that you're going to want to be looking at as you go about moving forward with them. The last thing you would want to do is go through 2 weeks with a borrower trying to figure out everything about the deal, getting all of their information, just to find out that they had a foreclosure last year and they had several cases of tax fraud. Another thing that you're going to want to be asking them about and be weary of if they're reluctant to answer is about their FICO score or allowing a hard credit pull. Now, in nearly all lending scenarios, we are going to be looking for a hard credit pull. At RCN, we will always be looking for that credit pull. So this is something where if they are not okay with doing so, it could be as simple as they don't want another ding, but it could also be all the way to They are well aware that their FICO score is not where they're saying it is, and they know that when polled, it will reveal the actual credit score. This is another one of those things that digging in and getting that answer right away is going to save you a lot of time in the end game. Another thing, as I recently mentioned, are foreclosures or bankruptcies. So here at RCN Capital, if they are over 2 years in the past, this isn't something that we're necessarily going to be too worried about. But with more recent foreclosures and bankruptcies, that is going to be something where we are not able to lend. This again is going to be something that's fairly common across the industry. You're also going to want to dig in on the exit strategy or planned use for the property for the borrower. Now, this again ties into what I mentioned earlier about making sure that the borrower or their family is not moving into the property. A lot of the times, if you see a borrower that's kind of dodgy when it comes to what exactly they plan on doing with the property, it could be because they plan on moving in, they plan on renting it out to family members, or it could even be that they're not quite sure what they want to do. Especially on rehab projects, you're going to want to make sure that you dig in and find out, do you plan on refinancing this property and holding it as a cash flowing property, or do you plan on selling that property? Because for you as well as the borrower, this is going to impact how you go about the whole process when you get near the end of the renovations. If you know in advance that the borrower is planning on refinancing, this is something that you can get ahead of as you get into those later weeks of rehabbing, where you can prepare yourself to do a quick, smooth transition into a refinance. Or if you're fully aware that the borrower is planning on selling the property, this is also an area where you can prepare yourselves ahead of time to make sure that you have the quickest turn time possible. You're also going to want to dig in on the property location. I'm well aware that some borrowers are a bit reluctant to release the address of the property they're looking at. Occasionally, you can find borrowers who are concerned that you yourself are going to go in there and take that property. So while this is something that we do need to know eventually, with the property location, you are going to want to dig in to at least find what state is it in, what is the zip code, can you tell me a property near that area? So while it may not always be the worst thing that they won't tell you exactly where it is, if they won't give you any indication of where that property is, that should be reason for concern. Now, also not knowing rehab details is going to be very important. If they plan on doing a renovation, this is something that we're going to need near the very beginning of the loan process. We are going to need that rehab budget by the time we order the appraisal, as that is how us here at RCN, as well as many other lenders, do get an accurate idea of that after repair value. You would need to provide that rehab budget to the appraiser prior to going in for the appraisal, and that is how we are able to determine the after repair value. Knowing the rehab budget will also play a big part in estimating the time to complete. If you see a rehab budget come in of 10,000 or 15,000, that could be as quick as 2 months. However, if you see a rehab budget where they're planning to completely demolish the second floor and rebuild it, that's going to take much longer. That also may be a conversation that you need to have with them about trying to get an extension as far as the term of the loan goes. Now, you're also going to be looking at the intended usage of the property or the funds, especially for those purchases or those rate term refinances. Typically with the rate term refinances, it is just going to go towards paying off any existing liens. Cash out refinances are a bit exempt from this in terms of the usage of funds, as really that's up to the borrower what they want to do with their cash. However, especially if they are looking to do a rehab or purchase, you're going to want to make sure that they are planning on using those funds for the property, as well as with the rehab budget that they are using those funds to get the items that they need. Now that you know a little bit more about what to look for, a couple of places that you can use RCN for these scenarios are going to be for purchases, purchase and rehabs, refinances, and cash out refinances. So here at RCN, these are only going to be available for non-owner occupied properties. We can't do any sort of partial occupancy, which really we define as staying a night in the property. We're able to lend on 1 to 4 unit properties, condos, and townhomes, as well as 5+ unit properties and mixed use properties. We do have a hard floor in terms of our minimum loan amount for each of these programs, with the 1 to 4 unit properties being a hard floor of $50,000 and a soft ceiling of $2 million. We're more than willing to go over that $2 million mark if the property makes sense. We may just want to look a little more into it. Same goes with the 5+ unit and mixed use properties. That is going to be a hard loan floor of $250,000 and a soft cap of $5 million. And in terms of knowing where the property is, everywhere on this map that you see in green is an area that RCN Capital is able to lend. We're a national lender, however, there are still 6 states that we're not currently able to lend in. Those 6 states you can see here in blue are Alaska, Nevada, Minnesota, Vermont, and the Dakotas. Largely, the reason why we don't lend in these states is due to the volume that we would see there. However, I'm sure a bunch of you are thinking, well, what about Las Vegas and Nevada or the Twin Cities in Minnesota? So with those states, there are actually some pretty strict licensing requirements. For example, in Nevada, we would need a brick and mortar building. So it is for those reasons that we don't currently lend in those states. And now to talk about how some software solutions may be able to assist you as well, I'll let Jacob take it over.
Wow, great information, Connor. Folks, it might have seemed pretty granular, the stuff that Connor was talking about, but everything that he touched on is super important, not only when you're working with lenders like RCN Capital, but in your own right, in your business, to make decisions on what deals you're going to focus on, where your efforts are going to be, even just kind of setting up a plan for not only this day, but the coming weeks, months, etc. So everything that he touched on, you want to have a good idea of all that information up front. That's going to help you kind of have an avenue of where you're going to look for as far as funding is concerned. But really, it's going to allow you to look like a real professional when you go to speak to these lenders. You're going to know a lot of the questions, or the answers rather, to the questions that they're going to be asking. That's just going to not only save you time in the upfront process, but really strengthen that relationship with the lenders that you're working with as well. Erica, before I go ahead and jump into it, are there any questions that we want to address right now before I move forward?
Sure, we have a couple of questions for RCN on some of their programs. Does RCN provide financing for ground up construction projects?
Yes, we do. So with our ground up construction program, we are actually able to lend up to 75% of the purchase of the lot, as well as 90% of the actual construction costs, so long as that total loan amount does not exceed 75% of that after constructed value. Now, we are going to be looking heavily at the experience of the borrower with this, especially when it comes to any prior ground up construction projects, or if they've completed any heavy rehabs that include things such as large amounts of property expansion or change in use of the properties. So that would be something along the lines of purchasing a 2-unit and turning it into a 4-unit property. But if you have any specific deal scenarios or anything in mind in terms of that ground up construction, please feel free to reach out to me. I would be more than happy to go over that program in depth with you.
Thank you, Connor. And then in regards to LLCs, is there a seasoning requirement if you're going to bring in a partner to provide a strong credit? Does that partner have to have a seasoning?
So there's not necessarily a seasoning requirement in terms of bringing a new partner into an LLC. However, when looking to increase the FICO score or be able to use that new partner's FICO score, one thing that we would be looking to see is A, that they would be signing and guaranteeing on the loan, but also B, that they are a 20% or larger owner of that LLC.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and continue with the presentation, and then I'll save a lot of the kind of program specific questions for the very end.
Absolutely.
Sounds great. Thank you, Erica. So guys, everything that I'm going to be talking about today, I want you to think about it in direct relation to what Connor had just spoken about vetting your deals. I really want to talk about the idea of using software and the information within software to be able to make decisions. I think that's really important for you guys as brokers to be able to make quick decisions, make accurate decisions that are going to benefit yourself, your borrowers, and everybody else on the transactions. So I want to start today about some of the ways that you guys can use software or other technologies in the beginning or in the vetting process, if you will. One of the biggest ways, and I'm sure a lot of you already have something like this, is a borrower-facing application and or portal. This goes for brokers as well. A lot of lenders right now offer portals, if you will, to their brokers and their borrowers. This is a really great way for not only you guys as a broker to submit loans directly to lenders, but also to have your borrowers submit loans directly to you. Now, when you use tools like this, a lot of them are going to ask those questions that Connor was talking about in your vetting process. What type of a property are you considering? Is it vacant? Is it occupied? Are you planning to live in the property? A lot of these questions you can get upfront with an online application that somebody can either go to or access via your website, or again, one of those borrower facing portals, and get you the information directly in front of you. Really, really great tool, cuts down the time in the beginning process, but also it puts some of that work on the borrower, kind of getting them involved in the deal as well. One of the other things that it can do is provide a secure document upload and storage location for borrowers or brokers like yourself as well. If you're submitting those documents directly to your lender, very good opportunity to have these in a safe and centralized location when doing so. Obviously, we're working with financial documents and other important personal information. Super important not only that that information is secure and we know that, but also the ability to have it in a cloud-based, ideally, location where it can be accessed from just about anywhere. It's going to not only allow you to get to that when you're sitting in the airport or on the train or whatever it may be, but it's also going to allow partners of yours, whether it be other employees within your companies or third-party people like borrowers, to access this information as well. Very important when you're looking at making decisions. If you're using something like this, specifically focusing on the portals now, if you're using some type of a borrower-facing portal, it can give them transparency on the deal process and timeline, allowing them to kind of better execute things, whether it be giving you documents, executing agreements, things of that nature. That transparency can really allow them, again, not only to get involved in the process, but cut down on the time of some of these things. Connor did touch on credit reporting, the importance of it. Every lender, again, is going to look at these credit reports a little bit differently. Most oftentimes, you as a broker have the opportunity to order credit reports prior to speaking to the lender. Regardless, analyzing those credit reports, using that information to make a decision as far as who you're going to reach out to for funding, whether this is even a viable deal at all, right? Consider all aspects of the deal, where it's located, the property type, and things of that nature, and then see again if the credit is even valid to allow this deal to go forward. One of the number one killers of new brokers specifically is kind of focusing on deals that really were never going to go anywhere in the first place, right? Getting all of this information that I just kind of laid out in the beginning stages can really reduce the amount of wasted effort on deals that weren't ever going to go anywhere. You see here my little comment on the bottom. Leveraging deal transparency and being organized is a great way to develop a strong relationship with your borrowers and lenders, I'll add, and help to reduce days to closing. You guys are professionals, right? You're brokers. You get hired based on your professionalism, based on your expertise within the industry. Things like leveraging deal transparency and making sure you are organized and you know the upfront information when vetting deals, really going to help create stronger relationships. And your borrowers, you want those people to come back to you over and over again. A great way to ensure that that happens is by creating that strong relationship. Next slide, please, Connor. So some of the other tech or software to be on the lookout as far as brokers like yourself are concerned. One of the things that a lot of lenders are offering nowadays are rate calculators, loan calculators, things along this nature, which would help you guys as brokers kind of see where your deal would qualify. If you have somebody at X credit with X experience, where does that scenario fall? Where does that compare into some of the other lenders that you may be looking at? This allows borrowers and brokers like yourself to really see what the best options are and really see where they might be looking for as far as baseline rates or the top end as well. It allows you guys and borrowers to compare their options amongst those different funders. And the one thing I would say here is just keep a lookout as far as the lenders that you're working with. A lot of them advertise these tools. A lot of them are still developing these tools or implementing them. So make sure that you're on the lookout for these tools. Make sure that if there are trainings offered, like I know RCN and BLN specifically, we've done multiple trainings on our loan calculators. A lot of these other people do that as well. Make sure you guys are taking advantage of those, making sure that you're going back and reviewing our past trainings as well if you're uncertain about how to use that tool. The information that the tool gives you guys, again, is really just going to allow you to make the quickest and best decision for you and your client. One of the other techs and softwares that you're going to want to be on the lookout for are e-signature technologies. More and more lenders are starting to implement this in their processes. There are a few different options as far as platforms and providers of e-signature stuff. So go ahead, familiarize yourselves with them. I'm not saying it's a necessity by all means, but this is kind of a blanket statement. You as a broker want to be aware of any way that your lender may interact with you, whether that's through their portal, whether that's through an e-signature platform or anything else. Be aware of these things. Make sure you understand how to use them. Make sure you understand what their purpose is as well. I would definitely consider, if you as a broker are starting to find yourself doing more of these e-signature things, create yourself an account with the most popular platforms. Most of them are free to do, but what it's going to allow you to do is revisit past or executed documents. That's going to allow you to kind of have a better handle on your organization, see where things are throughout the process, and ultimately, again, make some better decisions. But for any type of software or information that you're talking about, having the ability to access historical information is always super valuable. A lot of these e-signature platforms specifically, folks, if you do not have an account, you will not be able to access your past executed signatures and whatnot. So again, not a necessity, but definitely something to take a look into. Next slide, please, Connor. So this slide specifically, guys, I just want to focus a little bit on CRMs. When I first came into the industry, folks, software was really just starting to enter the space. It really was being tailored to lenders specifically at the beginning of my time. And over the last, 5 or 6 years or so, it's really started to trickle downwards to brokers and even into borrowers now. One of the biggest things and one of the biggest enhancements that we've seen are CRMs designed for specifically brokers like yourselves. These tools can be massive as far as organization and executing certain things, whether it be email campaigns, just following up on active deals, etc. One of the biggest things that it can do, really, you as a broker are talking to so many different people, whether it be lenders, realtors, borrowers, appraisal companies, etc. It allows you to have a handle on that contact information, track past conversations, and some of the more sophisticated CRMs can even allow you to have things like lender matrices, mapping capability, the ability to log conversations, even transcribe phone calls that you're having. So, as sophisticated as you want to get with these CRMs, most of them have those offerings. Obviously, there are some that are very basic, even free options as well. The main thing to consider when thinking about this is there a need for it? Is it going to help me stay organized? And will that create efficiencies within my team? Obviously, when we're looking at vetting deals, if you have a repeat borrower and you already have their most recent credit score on file, that's one less thing that you may have to ask about, or you already know that up front. you can consider other aspects of the deal and its volatility. You see my note here again, new technology continues to flood this industry. I talked about it at the beginning of this slide, how it was really tailored for lenders. Now it's trickled down into brokers. Guys, I go to a lot of conferences throughout the country, throughout the year. There are more of these platforms, more software popping up. Every single one of them, I see a new company. So they're always continuing to enter the market. It's a really great idea for you guys as brokers to use resources like industry news outlets, things like LinkedIn, even obviously signing up for your newsletters from lenders and other providers, just to stay on top of the things that are new. There may be something that can change your business overnight that enters the market. Really important that you guys stay on top of those offerings and really know exactly what's available for you, because there are new things popping up every day. So, my main theme here again, folks, has been using software technology and the information. That's the important part, the information that's provided within these softwares to make decisions for you and your client. The information is super valuable. Companies like Facebook, obviously, have made billions of dollars off information. You guys can do the same thing. That information is available to you. You use historical information and things like that to make decisions. It's there for a reason, and I highly recommend that you guys take advantage of that. Using a lender's portal or a broker portal to review required documents, closing timelines, even fees that are going to be able to, or fees that are going to need to be collected, is going to help you guys allow your investors to plan ahead, reduce the closing times, and just stay focused on the finish line. I feel like oftentimes there's a lack of communication about what's needed next, where things are throughout the process, and investors kind of feel like they're kind of hanging out to dry, if you will, and just kind of like in the dark. Using these portals is a really great way to have them be involved in the process. Kind of cuts out on the need for you to explain exactly what's going on when they can see it in real time. Obviously, allowing them to see what kind of fees, closing costs are going to be needed, going to allow them to plan their financials accordingly, because as you guys know, the best investors aren't just focused on the deal they're closing today, but they're focused on the next deal that they're going to go out and execute as well. Having access to that previous deal history for your borrowers, right? I just closed a loan with this guy about 7 months ago. It was a fix and flip loan. Let's see if it's time for that person to refi into a 30-year. Really, really valuable for you as a salesperson to go back and capture that repeat business. As I mentioned earlier, you want to create that strong relationship not only with your lenders, but your borrowers as well. Having an idea of where their loans are currently, kind of what their next idea is as far as a transaction is concerned, can really help implement and cement that lasting relationship. Now, one of the things I've mentioned a couple of times here, storing information in a centralized location. If you guys are a brokerage with more than just yourself, this is absolutely crucial. This is going to allow multiple people to look at information at the same time, collaborate, and make decisions together. If we're talking about loans specifically, if you see a deal come through and you have questions about it, your partner may have a better idea of a funder that could look at that deal, or if it's a viable deal at all. Allowing everybody to have information or access to that information at the same time in a centralized and secure location can really make it that much easier to make these decisions together. And then again, a note here, just centralize as much of this information as possible. We talked a little bit earlier about CRMs. The best CRMs, guys, can get very, very comprehensive. It allows you to store a lot of different information in there, see historical information, compare data, make future decisions where you want to invest your time and resources. Now, I've talked a lot about software. I do not think it's necessarily crucial for brokers in the industry. Now, it's a tool that really helps a lot of folks in the industry, but I do know a few brokers out there that still do it the old-fashioned way and get a lot of deals done. I want you to think about a few different things when you're considering adopting technology or software. One of the things is that technology should always be solving a problem or improving efficiencies. If you're just buying this tech because it's flashy and it looks good, it probably is going to cause more challenges in your business than it's going to help. So again, when thinking about technology or software, make sure you're thinking about if it's actually solving a problem or creating efficiencies. Now, any software, if it's new to you, there's going to be somewhat of a learning curve. Overcome that learning curve and any other challenges by implementing a process. If you implement a plan or a process of how you're going to use and execute this software, I found that can really help you be more successful by getting antiquated and implementing that software. If you just say, yeah, we'll buy it and we're going to subscribe to this and we're going to see where it fits in the process, as we go, oftentimes you can find out that you fall back into the old ways of doing things and the process that was already in place because you're used to it. Change is always something that we're a little bit apprehensive to. So always a good idea to create a plan, have a good roadmap of how you're going to implement and execute the use of this new software technology. One of the other things is take into consideration all the costs associated. And this is not just financial, folks. I'm not just talking about the dollars out of your bank account. I'm also talking about the time that it might take to adapt or implement this software. If you're looking at a real sophisticated CRM, it may take you or your team a week or two to get real familiar with it, get all the training that may be necessary. Take that into consideration because your time is valuable and that time is a cost to your business. Research if your potential solutions are popular among other investors or brokers within the space. So like I said, a lot of this software, folks, is trickling all the way down to our investors or borrowers. You, as an expert in the space, should be able to know good solutions for your investors. If you can refer your investor to a product that can help improve their business, who are they going to bring their deals to? Probably the person that helped them grow their business. So I always urge you guys to know and find out if research or if solutions are popular, because that means they're probably filling a void, solving a problem, improving efficiencies. And then again, you being able to provide that knowledge to your borrower makes you that much more of an expert, of a professional. A lot of softwares or technologies that you guys may implement are going to offer things like training and support. You guys all know our team here at BLN. We're here for you guys, training and support wise. You request it, we get it booked. A lot of software companies are going to have that same mentality. They want you to be successful with the product. You guys, as users of these products, take full advantage of these things. Make sure that you're attending training sessions. Make sure that you reach out to support when things are not working correctly or when you think things can be advanced. That's going to bring me to kind of my last point here for you guys when we're thinking about technology or implementation of that. Give feedback. I know a lot of you that are probably on the call today have either talking to myself or another member of our team about things that can be enhanced within our own system. That stuff is invaluable to us. I would say a majority of our improvements in the software are based on feedback from our users. So if you guys are using any type of a platform, when able, give suggestions, give feedback on that software platform, because most oftentimes those are implemented or at least considered by the providers. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to finish up here, folks, with a couple slides on statistics that we've seen over the last few years. This first slide here is really just showing this importance or the realization, if you will, of the importance of software and technology within, just the marketplace in general. A lot of people, saw a challenge when we were forced to transition a couple of years ago into this work from home or work remote environment. Communication was one of the biggest problems that people saw. Like I said, centralizing as much information as you can for you and your company is really going to allow people to communicate a little bit better, make better decisions, and collaborate, and just, again, make overall success for the company easier. One of the other things that really stood out to me is cloud email and collaboration market is expected to be worth $81 billion, 81 with a B billion dollars by 2024. That just shows the massive backing behind cloud-based technology. Again, guys, the importance of this stuff is becoming greater and greater as every day goes by. The more people that start to implement these processes and adapt these technologies, you know, the more important it's going to become. And then last slide for me here. These are some statistics that we saw this last couple of years in bridge loan network specifically. So over all time, we have 14,551 borrower accounts. What that tells me is brokers like yourselves are really collaborating with these borrowers through portals like Bridge Loan Network and allowing your borrowers to get involved. Again, that helps create a relationship. It helps give them transparency on these deals. But again, it really is just going to help create that strong relationship between you and the borrower. The last year, 2021, 3,000 of those accounts were created in that year alone. So again, growing importance of the collaboration here. Again, if we're talking about vetting deals here, folks, allowing your borrower to get you that information very early in the process, whether it be through an online application or a portal, it's really going to cut down on that time, and it's going to allow you guys to make that decision on where to bring the deal a little bit faster. Between 2019 and 2021, we've had almost 5,000 broker accounts created. That also tells me that the buy-in from our broker sector, you guys out there on the call today, really increasing the buy-in on technology. You guys can see lenders, they've been here. Over the time, we've got a lot of the lenders across the country that have at one point or another interacted with our software. They've been here. That software is transitioning. This technology is transitioning down to you guys, the brokers, and even the investors. So make sure you guys are aware of how these things can be available and help you in your business, help grow your business, and really just help you guys be the rock stars that you're meant to be. That's all for me at this time. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and a big point to what Jacob was saying about all of those different software solutions that you can use. Really, at the end of the day, a large part of why they're there and why you should be using them is not just a quality of life and knowing that you have a safe place to go ahead and find all of those documents, all of those all of those borrower contacts and lender contacts, but also in using these technologies, in being more streamlined, it's going to allow you to do more business, to grow your business at a more rapid pace. And as you go about expanding, already have that foundation as you go ahead and bring more people in with you.
Couldn't agree more with that, Connor. Erica, do we have any questions to finish up here with?
Thank you guys very much. We do have a couple of questions in our chat. This one is for you, Jacob. How does the client sign up for a portal and then add documents in? And can you be sure that the client will be added underneath the brokerage?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all great questions to consider. I can only speak for Bridge Loan Network when I'm talking about this stuff, folks. Obviously, I don't know what every other platform does, but here at Bridge Loan Network, if you create a borrower within your account, you can actually grant them access through your portal. There's a button on a loan that will say reset guarantor password. That will give that person the ability to create a password for their login and interact in the portal. If you want any other further instruction on that, you can always feel free to reach out to me, give me a phone call, or shoot me an email. For others out there, oftentimes this stuff can be available upon request. It's probably already being done in the background, even if you're not aware of it. So typically just ask whoever it is you're working with. If you want your borrower to start getting involved in the process, typically they have a way for that to be done.
Awesome. Thank you very much. The next question is for Connor. What are the experience requirements for the new construction program?
So with our ground up construction program, currently we're looking just to make sure that the borrower has a minimum FICO score of at least 680. And then in terms of experience, we do need to see that they have completed at least one ground up construction project. Now, if you do have a borrower that is looking to do a ground up construction, maybe they have some rehab experience in the past, we are still going to need a ground up construction deal to be done. So one of the alternatives or workarounds that you would be able to use to get financing for that borrower in a ground up construction scenario would be if they were willing to have their general contractor get onto the LLC with them. Now, again, we would just need to see at least 10% to get their experience and 20% to get their FICO score. However, we would need that general contractor to sign on as a guarantor if we are going to be able to use their experience. But really, the simple answer is we need to see at least one ground up construction experience of a member on the LLC. The more experience they have, the better the terms they'll be able to get.
Thank you, Connor. And then another question, can RCN lend on manufactured homes?
So RCN is not actually currently able to lend on manufactured properties. Really what we're looking for are solid in the ground properties. We prefer to see existing neighborhoods, if anything, especially with that ground up construction. However, we are looking for standalone buildings that have been built there.
Connor, is there a slide with your contact information on it?
So I don't believe there is a slide with it on here. However, I will provide. Erica, are they able to see all of the questions in the chat?
They are in the chat itself, yes.
Okay, then I will be sure to include my contact in there.
And this is for anybody who has any specific questions or any deal scenarios that they would like to go over. Connor would be the best point of contact at RCN to reach out to kind of go into more detail. And then if Jacob could do the same thing and put his contact information into the chat, if you have any questions on software solutions or getting into Bridge Loan Network, he'd be able to do a quick demo for you or your team to get everybody set up. I will also be sending the slides and the recording to everybody after the presentation. I will make sure in that both Connor and Jacob's contact information is in there for everybody as well. And at this time, we don't have any more questions in the chat. If there's any final remarks, Connor or Jacob, you'd like to send off with.
Yeah, absolutely. So really the importance of vetting these leads as well as being organized and using the proper software solutions for you are going to make the difference, especially whether it be you're starting out, whether you're building, or whether you are experienced. Being able to properly vet leads is going to be able to eliminate a lot of wasted time and a lot of wasted efforts in the long run. Being more proactive in asking those tough questions, digging in if you see someone not wanting to really give you a full response on something is going to help you a lot in making sure that you're more efficient, you're using your time more usefully, and in the end, you're closing more deals.
That's what it's all about. I 1000% agree with you, Connor. Guys, we're halfway through March here already. The year's off and running. You guys don't wait on this stuff. If you're thinking about, making a move as far as technology is concerned, get after it. We're all wanting to see you guys be really successful and have the best year that you can this year. So don't wait. Make a move if you're thinking about it. And again, reach out to us if you guys have any questions. Very much appreciate you guys joining us here today.